Hi, you guys. Welcome back. My name is Carrie Penny. I am the Happy Crafty Homemaker, and welcome to my indeterminate length review of Mandala Tweed Stripes. Yeah, I don't know if this is going to be a quickie review or a long review. I have a lot to say about it, but a lot of it kind of stacks into each other. If you don't like hearing negativity, please leave now. All right. I have done everything possible to tell you guys I love this yarn. I really have. My first impressions picking up the ball or picking up the cake of it. Let's backtrack here. So I told you guys a couple videos ago, if there's something you would like me to review, it's not really breaking my yarn band to buy a couple balls to test for you guys. I received a wonderful email from somebody who does not want their name spouted on the channel to do Mandala Tweed Stripes and specifically focus, for her sake, on how it crochets. Now, I have no problem with this. I have not tried Mandala Tweed Stripes. None of my stores carried it until recently in person, so I was kind of excited to try it. None of my Walmarts ever carried it. Before we moved here, Michael's didn't carry it in Columbia. Until 2 weeks ago, I had never seen it in store anywhere. And ironically, I go into Michael's to grab something for another project, and boom, big old display of Mandala Tweed Stripes, half picked over and on sale, 2 for $6 with a 20% off coupon because that was not a doorbuster price. So I got a really good deal on it. And this is like literally 24 hours after I got this email. Was super excited. I touched the cake and was immediately like, oh, this is so soft. This is so nice. I can't wait to start working with this. Very excited. All over the place with it. Got home, started working with it. Let's see, that was Saturday. The following Saturday, so a week later, I start a project with it. It split, and I was like, crap. So the first project I worked was this hat. This is the Granny Stitch hat from Yarn Inspirations. Now, when I was working on this, my first thought was, crap, this is going to be a pain in the butt. Because immediately, within like 2 rows, I noticed it started splitting. The twist in it was very uneven. I was getting very annoyed, and I was like, okay, I'm using a smaller hook. This pattern calls for an H for the body of it and a 7 for the brim of it. That could very well be the problem. That's the risk you run when you don't use the recommended hook size for things. I'm okay with that. I really like the pattern, and I really like how it worked up in pattern. It's tweedy, it's stripy. There's actually 3. You can barely tell the variation in color from here to here, but the hat did stripe in 3 separate sections. But the splitting was an issue. And I just, right out of the bat, very, very splitty. When I got done with this, I was, part of what I'm trying to do is stick with Season of the Granny as well. I decided to do the Unraveled Mitten Granny Stitch scarf. And once again, just look at how pretty that is. It really does just look gorgeous. I used the recommended hook size for this. That was a size 5.5 millimeter size, US size I believe. I left my ball band upstairs. It's in my 2020 journal because I still have some other information that I need to write down. And y'all go to the Lion Brand website if you want to see more. This is 100% acrylic yarn. I think it's 150 grams per cake, maybe 200 grams per cake. I got 2 cakes And these were the first 2 projects I worked on of it. We're not done yet. But I did want to comprehensively discuss this first before we move on. So I had a lot of fake knots in it. The yarn is twisted on itself. Actually, you know what? Hold on just one second. I'm going to go grab the ball band, and I have a little tiny piece of the yarn left to show you. I promise you guys, I have notes, and I am prepared in my head. Anyway. Ball band. 5.3 ounces, 150 grams, 426 yards, 390 meters, US size 4. Recommended needle size is a 7, 4.5 millimeter. Hook is an I9, 5.5 millimeter. Machine washable and dryable. Balls of yarn from the same dye lot may differ due to the unique effect within each color. This is the charm of the yarn. Same disclaimer is on Premier's website when dealing with the candy shop yarn as well. All right. So, part of that charm of the yarn thing. Find a stretch of white here. This is my largest scrap of this yarn left over. So you can see what I mean. Like, each ply is fairly well twisted. The yarn itself is not tightly twisted. And you can see down here at the end how that looks. All right. So I had a lot of splitting. That was annoying. But like I said, I started out using a size H hook, which is one size smaller than what is recommended. That's fine. I mean, I use yarn that irritates me like that all the time. I don't like dealing with splitting, but it happens. This isn't a uniform piece something. Splitting is something you run into. My biggest problem, though, is there were multiple hiccups in the manufacturing of the 2 balls that I got. So the way this is twisted, I had multiple spots where the 2 strands of color, for, a couple of inches, had pulled apart like this, and where all that twist in the yarn was into these individual loops. And I'm calling them faux knots because the yarn's not cut and separated. But as you're working, you start getting into your groove finally, especially when you're working with a splitty yarn. You start getting into your groove. You're rotating your hook just a little bit differently. You're starting to roll on it, and bam! You have to stop, untwist these faux knots. And they untwist and then work through them. My smallest one was the entire length of a double crochet. My largest one was 3 double crochets long. So, to me, this is a manufacturing error. There's a hiccup on the machine for this line of yarn. If you have used this yarn, let me know if you had the same problem. Because this could be 100% an issue with this run. But it's enough to where you're sitting there going, I would never dissuade somebody from using I love this yarn. I think it's a beautiful acrylic yarn. But when I did my Christmas blanket in 2018, I wanted to burn the factory down. I had so many knots in that Japanese garden yarn. I wanted to rend garments, throw ashes, burn down factories. I was so annoyed. And I had like 13 knots in one ball. And this was all one dye lot of this colorway. And it was knot after knot after knot. And this is a double-stranded blanket I was working on. So you can imagine if one ball has 13 knots, the fewest knots I had in one ball was 3. I think I may have had one that didn't have knots in it. And that was the extra one that I bought like 3 weeks later that wasn't the same dye lot. I don't know what was going on in the factory that day. I don't know what was going on with the run of that color. But I swear to you, I was so frustrated. And I was telling Hobby Lobby, it's like, you need to get in touch with your manufacturer because they need to know whatever happened on this run, never again. But I'd bought so much of the yarn, like, I had more than enough to finish my blanket. I had needed that one extra ball because I decided to go around it an extra time. That's it. I mean, like, I didn't ask for extra stuff or anything. But the issue with my faux knots in this yarn could very easily be the same thing, where it's one bad run of one color. But let me tell you, yeah, I'm looking down my notes. I started counting them after a certain point. The first cake that I used, by the way, the colorway on this is Buddha. The first cake I had 8 of these faux knots in them, but no tie-in knots. 0 tie-in knots on the first ball. The second cake I had a tie-in knot, but the color matched perfectly. It went, that was on this project. My tie-in knot was in this stripe of color here. And you can tell, I mean, these two, you've got almost the entire color. They're almost the same amount of space. I mean, they tied it in perfectly. It broke. They tied it in exactly where it should have gone. So kudos to them. Kudos to the manufacturing for that. So my one knot was actually tied in color pattern and didn't disrupt the striping pattern. So that was pretty awesome. My second ball still had like 6 of these faux knots though. Very frustrating, very annoying. Because like I said, I was having issues with splitting and I started cruising, hit a faux knot. Start cruising again, hit a faux knot. And I was already like, and I'll be honest, like I was having a bad weekend anyway, but still like, really? The color shift is beautiful. And I do specifically want to look at the knitting for this. I did a Hill 60 hat, which is one of my all-time favorite worsted weight hat patterns. The pattern for the hat is nothing. It's the beautiful decreasing at the crown that makes this hat. I love the overlapped rib decreasing. I just love it. Period. End of story. But I mean, you've got a gorgeous effect with the combination of the tweed and the stripes when knitted. And same thing with my cowl. I mean, you can, in this color pass here, you can really see we have like a almost cadet blue and gold. The cadet blue drops and it's in this aqua color, but you still have the gold here. And then it moves into gray, a gray purple as it moves down. Yeah, I think the aesthetic of the stripes with the tweed is gorgeous. And Lion Brand definitely nailed this colorway. My store only had like 6 colorways. But like I said, the display was heavily picked over when I saw it. But yeah, I was exceptionally impressed with the aesthetic of this yarn. I thought it looked absolutely stunning. Oh, there's my piece. So, annoyed that it split. Annoyed with the faux knots. Love the color pass. 2 negatives and a pro. All right. As you're working this yarn, if you are not a washer and blocker, your finished object's not quite as soft as it feels in the cake. Now this is good and bad depending on what you're working with. But even knitted, while these are much drapier and softer, and the finish, I mean, even crocheted, it's not like itchy, scratchy, uncomfortable, but how it feels in the cake when you're playing with it, touching it, petting it, and how it feels worked are very different. I was trying to show y'all last week when I tried to film this. I mean, it's pliable, but you can see the rigidity to it still too. And that's not a pro or a con. That's just, sometimes that's how yarn works up. That's why it's nice to have reviews where people work yarn and actually make whole projects with it and don't just give you first impressions. Like I said, I pushed this as hard as I could to just, I wanted to give you as many pros, and so many of the things I do are things I buy for myself anyway. So I have nothing but beautiful things to say about it because I knew I was going to like it. And this was one where I was kind of surprised that I was so middle of the road with it. As these things get worn and used, they will soften dramatically. And I've got a swatch to show you for that. But I was really surprised at how dense everything felt. I did do the scarf in a size I hook, which is the recommended hook size. If you want something that's got nice drape and you're not a knitter, I would highly recommend going ahead and going up an extra hook size and use a J instead of an I. Just because it is so, the stitches turn out really, really dense. The final thing on this, because like I said, that's not a pro, that's not a con. It's something you need to know. I used a size 7 needle for both of these. So this is the recommended. I think knitted, you're fine using the size 7 needle. Your fabric is about what you would expect it to be for a worsted weight hat. It doesn't end up quite as dense feeling knitted as it did crocheted. It knit fine. I mean, before I get into my wash swatch, I do want to say this has a draggy stickiness to it, which is not one of my favorite textures to work with. I've mentioned that on the channel before. It's not bad. That doesn't mean it's a no bad yarn. But it is something to know if you're wanting to like dive into a project with some scrumptious yarn and just enjoy the make. The colors for this are very fun to work with. The texture on it is a little sticky. And even washed, and I did make a swatch, and I washed my swatch, I can still feel it through the halo, which is hilarious. Because the other yarn that I've said that it was excruciatingly noticeable with was Ice Magic. And when I washed that project, that tacky residue feeling to it was actually gone when I washed it. This washed feels like you always have lotion that's like embedded in it or something. And I don't even experience that with like most animal fibers I work with, so it's really weird. I don't know how to describe that. But this is what it is washed. And you can see all I did was throw this in a permanent press load on a permanent press dryer, washed it with my clothes, just, t-shirts and stuff like that. Nothing, no jeans, no towels, nothing heavy, nothing that would over agitate the yarn. Now this is crocheted using a size I hook, just like it says. significantly drapier just being washed. This is not blocked. This is just wash and dried. And let's see, machine washable and dryable, 105 degrees. My permanent press, I think, is at like 90 degrees. So yeah, like, this is within the thing. If you're planning on machine washing your finished object, be aware of the haloing. It does soften significantly. Now, I'm going to try to do this without kicking the camera. Hopefully, the god-awful mask of makeup that I talked about in Show and Tell 56 is not offensive to your eyes, but this is half double crochet on this end. This is double crochet here in the middle. And this is single crochet down here on the end. You can see the haloing difference with the smaller stitches versus denser stitches on this side. I don't mind haloing necessarily. Yes, I'm still wearing like legging pants. I look fancy on top and I'm comfy on the bottom. I don't mind haloing, but this yarn I would definitely keep in mind how much that halos just with one wash. I could see this pilling very quickly with that much fuzz coming off of it. I can see that pilling very quickly and becoming an unusable item very fast. I'm so torn on this yarn. I'm going to give it a 3 to a 3.5 overall experience for me. That being said, things like how splitty it is, the number of faux knots that I had in it, stuff like that could be very specific to this run of color. But I did everything I know how to redeem this yarn. And I'm still right down the middle with it. I don't love it. I don't hate it. It's literally right down the middle. Which surprised me when I first was like, what would I rate this? But I got to thinking about it. And the problems I have with this yarn are very similar to how I feel about Caron Simply Soft. Caron Simply Soft is one of those yarns that squeaks on my hook. It splits for everybody else. I've really never had much of an issue with splitting. And when you machine wash it, it doesn't halo quite this dramatically. But it does halo. And it's got that weird squeaky thing going on for it. Or at least, now I haven't bought new Simply Soft. I will say, in probably 8 years. I've gotten way into other yarns, so I just haven't bought Caron Simply Soft for any project. So this could be, I'm thinking of just old Simply Soft. So if you're, I know, Rose, you like Simply Soft quite a bit and use it a lot. Summer, you use it a lot. So if your experience is different with the newer stuff, let me know. But I know a lot of other people still have issues with this splitting. So, I mean, the problems I have with this, the cons or the it just is what it is stuff is very similar for me to Simply Soft. And I would say Simply Soft is a really good, it's a solid 3 for me. This one's in that same zone. There's nothing dramatically horrible about it. Horrible, bad. Or anything that makes it stand out other than the aesthetic. Now, once again, I love the colors. I love the way they work through. I think everything I made from it is really pretty. I would definitely wear them. None of these are like, oh, I'm going to donate these because I don't like them. I'm donating these because I've got more than enough hats and scarves to last me a lifetime. And I have a couple of different charities that have asked for hats and scarves specifically recently. Or that I follow. They're in need of hats and scarves specifically. These will hold up for donation project. Like, I'm not worried about them holding up for donation items. But I can't say, unless I see it for $1 a ball, I'm going to buy a whole bunch of it. And even at $1 a ball, I'm going to have to really be in love with the colorway. Now, online, they have substantially more than what I had to choose from. This was the only colorway I actually liked in my store. But like I said, my display had been heavily picked over. So that's not one I'm going to hoard. Yeah, I love how I've got 4 brands that I've kind of, this one's not hoarded though. This is just leftovers. Yeah, I'm not mad. I'm not happy. I'm somewhere in that zone with it. So those are my thoughts and feelings on it. If your experience with the manufacturing is different after working with it, please let me know, because I'd be really interested to know if that is a blip in this shot, in this run of color, or if that's something that is universal with it. I've used a lot of yarns in a very similar style. I really love tweed, and I love knit tweed in particular. So that's something normal for me to use. Scarfie is a loftier version of that. Adore it. Scarfie is actually probably more like this one. The comparative review will actually be with Roll With It Tweed from Red Heart and Candy Shop here, because they are striped gradient transition tweedy yarns. So I will be circling back to do a comparative review with all 3 yarns, with all 3 yarns being in their individual reviews. I don't know. I mean, I would love to know your experience with this, because I am so just in the middle with it. Sorry. I'm getting very, very dry-throated already. This is my second video filmed today. If you guys have any other suggestions, I mean, I hate having a buy it as soon as you see it on sale. I hate it not being that. But yeah, if you have any questions, let me know. If you have used it, please comment down below, so not only I, but everybody else who sees this has an opportunity to learn from your experience. Yeah, I would really love to know how you felt about it while you worked it, and the care of your finished project, if it's something you kept for yourself. Because I'm very down the middle, and I'm curious how much of it's manufacturing, how much of it is a bad run, how much of it is, I did have the super high expectations and it hit dead middle, which makes me feel a little bit more uncertain. Expectation versus reality was not met in this yarn as far as the feel. Now the color, spectacular. So I'm at that end where I'm just kind of babbling again. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this off. But if you have any questions, comments, please leave them down below. As always, if you have a suggestion of something you would like to see reviewed, please leave a comment down below, shoot me an email, or send me a message on Instagram. Other than that, take care. I will see you guys real soon. Love you guys.